Welcome to the Veterinary Project podcast, episode 127.
Welcome to the show created by vets featuring absolutely no pets. This is the Veterinary Project podcast, hosted by Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light. Our resident veterinarians have swapped out their stethoscopes in favor of microphones to bring you the Veterinary Project podcast, a show focused on real conversations, aimed to connect this amazing profession full of remarkable people. Through the sharing of collective stories and wisdom, and connecting over the many unique challenges we face, we invite you to join our community of veterinary professionals leading intentional lives. And now, here are the hosts of the Veterinary Project podcast, Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light.
Welcome back to the Veterinary Project podcast. You are joined by Dr. Jonathan Light and the one and only author extraordinaire, Dr. Mikey Bugg. Good afternoon, Bugg. How are you?
I'm doing well. Got to add author in there. That's exciting.
Hey, that's what this episode is all about. We're not messing around, getting into what Mike has spent the last couple of years putting together. But before we get into there, let's leave a little mystery for the group of people that are listening. What is happening in your world?
Well, since we are talking about the book launch, what is happening in my world is all of the stuff that goes into writing a book behind the scenes. At this point, as we're recording this, the book has been written. It's off doing its thing at printers, but there's all these like marketing nuances that are totally foreign to me. That's what I've been working on.
And I want to spend a lot of today diving into the content of the book, but the nerd in me also wants to understand all those behind the scenes pieces because there's lots of individuals. I'm not one of them right now. No aspirations to become an author at this point, but I know there are going to be listeners that are going to want to know those details. That's what today is about. Why the heck did you become an author? How do you become an author? And then let's jump into the content of the book itself. Pretty exciting times, buddy.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really, it's like a weight off my shoulder. You know, I had decided I was going to write a book. It's something I've always wanted to do. And I remember when I officially started was right when COVID hit. So that gives you an idea of, how long I've been pushing papers around my desk on this because I wasn't efficient at it. It took way too long, but, happy to have it cross the finish line.
Excellent. Well, you know what? That's it. We're done with the banter. Let's get into it. So
cool.
It's COVID pre-time. You're thinking about writing a book. Why? What gave you the idea to want to write a book?
Well, it's just something I've always wanted to do. I don't know where that comes from. I enjoy writing, right? Like I'm an introvert. I'm fairly introspective and I enjoy, that whole thing of sitting down and trying to clarify thoughts and kicking them around. So it's funny, I have a lot of blog posts that I have partially written here and there. And I was like, why don't I just start pulling all these together and unleash it as a book? So the quick answer is it's something I always wanted to do. And then, in the book, it goes through my whole journey in my veterinary career, and I had heard once upon a time that you're best able to serve and impact people, that are in a position you've been in, right? So everyone as veterinarians faces all these different challenges in their career. And then us through the podcast, we get chatting to lots of people. And I'm like, wow, so many people are feeling this exact same way. I am not the only one. And I'm like, let's just get it all out there in a book and unleash it on the world.
Unleash it. So the title of the book, You're Going to Get Peed On, One Veterinarian's Journey. And before we get into the content of it, let's walk through the framework of actually building a book from the standpoint of the introspection to the creative portion, and then right through to the publishing. So you have self-published this book. Is that correct?
Yes and no. I don't know what I would call it. So I have hired a company. So it's not totally self-published. I have hired a company that basically holds my hand and walks me start to finish, right? They're like, now you're writing, now you're editing, now we're publishing. These are the steps. So that has been extraordinarily helpful. Lots of that back end is taken care of.
And on that account, then this company that they've hired, they've not done the traditional route of taking that to a publisher that would then give you an advance, which would then publish on your behalf, take royalties, all the rest of it.
Oh, I got you. No, like I opened the Veterinary Project Publishing. Like that's a legit company now. And that's what published this book like that. So it's all self-funded, you know, and it is what it is. Amazon will take their cut and I'll get a few bucks.
So this was really exciting. We were speaking about this a couple of weeks ago and I was going, wait a second. So you have hardcover, soft cover, Amazon. Now I didn't ask whether you Kindle version, but audio version, I didn't ask that. Are we going to hear Mike's beautiful voice on audio?
At some point, but not by March 22nd. I had it on the list and I really want to do that, but it's just too much. So it was dragging on. It's like, we're launching the book. I'll worry about that later, you know, getting an audio version out someday.
So then from the perspective of, again, continuing to work forward to go backwards, working forward is the work of building a book, what you expected. All of the different pieces that need to come together before this piece is in front of you that says, I am an author?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm not really going to dive too much into all the little like nuancy stuff of like, okay, you got to get your whatever ISBN numbers, all that, whatever. You can figure that out. The important part was I knew it was going to be hard. Like I knew, okay, you have to write X thousands of words and they have to kind of make sense. You're going to chop them down. What I was not prepared for was, you know, the mindset piece that I had to fight with. So this book will be published and it will be in the world forever, right? And this is like kind of a mindfuck for me, to be honest, like, because we're veterinarians, like we're scientists, like science comes along and evolves and things move and develop. And it's like, I know that there is stuff that I have written that I'm going to look back on and just facepalm and be like, what was I thinking? Right. And you're in this whole journey and it's like, you're doing the best you can at that moment in time, but eventually the content has to get locked. Like you can't just edit this thing forever. Right. And the content has honestly been locked for probably close to a year. Right. And so I learned new things and I'm like, we should put that in the book. And they're like, come on, like it's over. We can't keep doing this because you'll never publish. So that has been the hardest part of writing the book, is drawing the line and being like, this is the book. It's going out. It will be out forever. And knowing I will look back on it and people will read it. And there will be things where it's like, that was really stupid.
Such a great answer, Mike. And I think it fits right into your overall theme of the book, starting out and then moving through the transition. And so I'm going to jump into it and talk a little bit of the content pieces. First off, going into this, for all the listeners, this book is worthwhile to read.
Okay, and I am going to jump in here because I sent Jonathan, you have the first ever copy. Now, it was just electronic. I finally do have an actual print copy. They sent me, just 2 to check out. And before we jumped on here, I was like, Jonathan, just be honest with me. Like, no judgment either way. Like, did you actually read it? And you were like, I did. And I was like, yes.
I told Candace, my wife, I said, I wasn't expecting to read the whole book.
To be honest, when I was like, hey, we're shooting a book episode, I'll send you a copy. I was like, he'll skim it at best. Like he'll read the chapter titles and we'll go from there.
And then I was making pre-notes and I was writing them in my phone because I only had the PDF copy. And I usually read my books on Kindle or paperback version. And I went, Mike, I've already got these questions. He said, no, get them into our normal Google Drive. I said, well, I have more to come. And I think that shocked you. I kind of read that in your text and going, what do you mean you're actually reading this book? So that's my comment to start with, is this is a good book. So it took me a chapter to get into and going, okay, everybody's reading and writing style is different. But then once I got into your style and I read a lot, I went, I want to know more. And I know you well. So there's a lot of the quotes and pieces and philosophies that we have walked through as a journey together on this podcast. But then I wanted more and I wanted to read into it. And there's stories that were part of this book that I've never heard of. So I both say that as a huge congratulations to you. And I think for everybody that's listening here that wants to go introspective in their journey of veterinary medicine and in life, this is a worthwhile read. You took it really seriously. The amount of notes, the quotes, the pieces that came from other published authors and professionals that we both know impressed me. Like you didn't wing it. And so that was really impressive.
Yeah, it's funny. Early on in this whole journey, even probably before I started writing it, when I knew I was going to write a book at some point, and one of my mentors that I work with, really challenges how people think, and kind of had challenged me on like, are you going to write the book that you think people want you to write, or are you going to write the book you actually want to write? And it's like, that's a subtle like difference, but I was like, no, I'm going to tell some of the real stuff. Like, I'm not going to like sugarcoat it and be like, oh, just so that it's more, softer and acceptable. It's like, it's the real story of what was going on.
And you get into personal life, philosophy changes over time, money management, and what life looks like to you today as it continues to evolve. So first question for you is, how did you define and determine how to narrow the scope of stories that were available? We all have stories in life, and then decide to include them or not include them in your chapters.
Yeah, that's a good question. This is where working with that company really helped. Full disclosure, I wrote the book mostly. I would say we'll say 75%-ish of it. Then what I did is I hired through this company a ghostwriter, and we went through the whole book, and we just had these Zoom conversations and we chatted. And that third party, non-veterinary perspective was able to be like, that's really good. That's a good story. This is extra. Get rid of it. Right. And they just start chopping and I just sort of accepted that and trusted that, they know what they're doing. They know what needs to just disappear. And then the flow of the story is really mostly how you're going to experience your veterinary career, right? Like the challenges that come first, maybe the perfectionism and the imposter syndrome, those come earlier than problems with identity, which comes later, right? So the book kind of flows what your career may resemble.
Yeah. And May is perfect because I know, from the two of us, we have different perspectives on career, not one that's right or wrong. They're just different. And every single person that's going to read this is going to be able to relate some pieces and not others. And that's I think the beauty of it. Are there any particular pieces or stories in the book that stick out now, even more than maybe at the time that they happened, as it relates to the book and its full theme?
Yes. Yeah. The one that jumps out for me comes in the money section near the end of the book. And I'll kind of set the scene here just for the listeners that haven't read the book. So this was a story on our family farm. And so this is under some of my money philosophies. And one of the money philosophies I have is building hopper bins in your life, which is a very farmer term because I grew up on a grain farm. So
for anybody that doesn't know what a hopper bin is, I think you need to explain it.
That's what I was just going to do.
Okay,
so
good.
For the non-farmers. So grain farmers go and they collect all their seeds, and you can put them in two types of bins: flat bottom bins, which is exactly like they sound, they're flat, or hopper bottom bins, which are basically a big funnel. Now you can imagine once you've filled that bin and you need to go empty it, the flat bottom bin, you have to climb inside of it and shovel and sweep out the last remnants of the grain to get it clean. The hopper bottom bin, you open the bottom and all the grain just funnels up. Right? So we are building bins on our farm, and we are building one of those flat bottom bins. And you have never sweated until you've shoveled out a full, huge steel grain bin in 30-degree temperature with the sun beating down. And you've also never sweated until you're building one of those bins in the summertime. So we are building one of these flat bottom bins on our farm. And I was working on the flooring piece of it, and I'm just dripping in sweat. And my dad comes up, and I turn to him, and I said, this is a lot of work, and it always will be. And I just said it in passing as a complaining teenager that was like, man, you are working me like a dog here. Like, this is ridiculous. But the point is, even after we built that bin, we have to climb in it every time we want to use it and work really hard again. And then I've taken that over the years when it finally clicked in, and especially as it relates to money. And it's like, why are you putting systems in your life that are hard to create and they're hard to manage over and over, day after day? You have to work hard on them. It's like, why not do the funnel approach? Work really hard and set up this excellent funnel system, and then it just operates. So that's where my investing philosophies have come from, right? So that's the story that's kind of got more impactful in my life as I've got older.
Such a great story, and so important in so many places in life that it is relevant to.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the thing. Like, I happen to put it in the money section of the book. You can put it in any area of your life you want.
Absolutely. Okay. Switching gears. Who should read this book?
Yeah. Good question. I was thinking of this. I don't have a great answer for this one, but obviously vets. I feel like vets pre-vet, vet students can stand to get a lot of value because they're so early in their career, but also people that have been out quite a while. This hopefully challenges some of the way they think about things. That would be my hope anyway. But more broadly speaking, I would say anyone that feels out of alignment, right? And you just know, I've already said it. You already know whether you feel that way or not. If you feel like, okay, I would like a little more control of my life, I'd like to feel a little more aligned. Hopefully there's some stuff in this book for you.
When you were first writing it, I remember us speaking about this. This was early days. You had an avatar. You had the persona of the person that you're maybe writing it towards, which was more, to you as an individual and then whoever that was in the ethos. Did that person exist throughout as the same, or did it change over time?
Well, it definitely changed.
Pop-up question I never put in our pre-recording notes.
Yeah. That's where our best stuff comes from, though. That's what I always laugh about our pre-recording notes. It's like, okay, cool. We'll cover 10% of that. Thanks for the heads up. It definitely changed because I changed a lot.
Yeah. And so you're feeding me what I thought through the book. And I even asked you that, even as the chapters go along, you could see that evolution of thought process and depth. So I asked you, did you write this all, 1 to 10, or did that person change who you're writing towards?
Yeah. And honestly, I was writing it kind of to myself, like if I could rewind and it was like, hey, is there a book I could read as a, veterinarian at various stages of my career? That's really kind of writing it to myself. And I know it'll resonate with others, but yeah.
Excellent. So on that note, then, given that it could be for pre-vet students, definitely veterinary students. Again, I speak to a number of different colleges. This will be at my lecture and wherever I'm going, because I think it is going to be very well worthwhile to open up the eyes of a perspective of reality, which is real. And there's a lot there. Perfectionism, needs, all the self issues that come around with being a veterinarian and or just in life. On that note, though, is it a self-help book?
I don't like that word.
Good. Then let's get into it. You knew I was going to ask it.
I know. I don't know what to say to that. Self-help sounds so like this is just now you're getting my biased opinion. It sounds like
rant away.
Righteous and like I know better. And here, read my gospel. And it's like, I don't know. Like, is it a self-discovery book? Maybe. I don't know. Like that's really my goal. I think I opened the book. I don't know if you read any of the opening stuff, but I said like, this book is I can't remember what I used, purebred burn doodle. That's part wolf. And you have like the only copy. And it's like, it will land different because it's you at your stage in life reading it, and everyone has different experiences and whatnot. Really what I'm hoping it does is it just changes your context, like the way you think about things, right? So self-discovery, that's what I'm going to go with to give you an answer.
I like that answer. It doesn't matter what I think, but I do like that answer. One of the main themes in the book, right from the start all the way through, and then you bring it back up in a number of the chapters, is Miserable Mike. And this was good because I never heard it in that exact context before. So who is Miserable Mike, and where and when does he still show up?
I like how you put that in does he still show up? Because I'll come back to that, but the answer is yes, he does. So Miserable Mike, I think of it like this. You're a veterinarian and you go and you have a bad day, and everyone can relate to that. We know what a bad day feels like. And you start stringing a couple of those bad days together. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, those are bad days. The week is bad. Next week is bad. And you string enough of those together, and all of a sudden you're in a bad mood, right? And then it's like, okay, well, I'm in a bad mood and I'm in a bad mood again. And you put enough of those together, and it's no longer just a bad day or a bad mood. That's your personality, right? And it's one of those things that's like the boiling pot of water. It just slowly shifts on you. And I mean, me well, lots of our listeners won't. We rewind all the way back to first year vet school, second year vet school. I'm not Miserable Mike.
No, not at all. You were let's go, Mike.
Yeah. Like, happy-go-lucky. Let's joke around. Let's have fun, pretty positive, not much stressing me out. That's what I enjoyed about my personality. But it was undeniable that after enough bad days, bad moods, my personality had changed. Yeah. Right. And it was hard to accept that. And so in the book, I tell the story of, just one day home from work, another one of those days, sitting at the dinner table with Rosalie. We kind of get into another one of the arguments that are just so prevalent because you bring all that stuff home with you. And she says it to me, I don't remember exactly what we were saying, but I do remember she's like, she looks at me and she's like, you are miserable, comma, Mike. That's the way she said it. You are miserable, Mike. How I heard it was, that's my new moniker. It's like, you're miserable, Mike. Like, that's my full name, miserable Mike. And when it hit me, I was like, holy shit. Like she is correct. I'm mad about this, right? That often happens when someone points out something that's very true that we don't want to hear. And I was like, I didn't like hearing it, but it was very accurate.
And when you see yourself still, because we're human, things happen, old traits are hard to break. When you see yourself going back to miserable Mike, as you describe in the book through a couple of the different chapters, are you better able to handle it? Are you better able to see it based on the evolution, which is Mike through the last 5 years? Tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's a really nice framework for this book as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So remember how I said it's sort of bad day, bad mood. Now my personality has changed. Now it's more miserable Mike is trying to knock on the door and get in. And now I have enough tools at my disposal, enough awareness to be like, not this time. No, not this time. Like, I know how I'm going to deal with this. And it's like, sure, I had a bad day. No problem. We can bounce back from that before it spirals into miserable Mike is sitting at the dinner table.
Excellent. And I think I believe you. I know you, but then I go back to your previous answer, which was this is a book of self-discovery. The tools that are ingrained in this book provide for that tool set to be able to do that. And so there's where I think a lot of people are going to get benefit in this book, which, some would call self-help, but I like your self-discovery because it is the toolkit that allows for the actualization of reality, but also what can you do with that?
Yeah. Because here's the thing. Veterinary medicine and life can be hard at times. It is hard at times.
It's hard.
There's no book in the world that's just going to magically make it easy. That doesn't exist. All it is when those challenges come up, do you have the tools at your disposal when you need them so you can navigate them?
Great point. You're an author. You've got the book. I saw it. What makes a difference between somebody that goes through to become an author versus aspiring versus just thinking about it?
I like this question. Quick tangent on that is it's hard for me. I want to chime in and downplay that, right? And be like, oh, but it's like, thank you. I appreciate that. Is I am. And it's funny. I have a whole chapter on I am statements. So to answer your question, the first thing that pops up is just grit. Anyone listening to this can definitely be an author. Their I am statement could be, I am an author. They just haven't written a book yet, right? I am not special. Thank you for saying how good the book is in your opinion. I look at it sometimes and I'm like, ooh, that's poor writing. That could be better, blah, blah, blah. But it's just grit, just power through, follow the steps, get it done. And then the two things behind that is getting over fear and ego. That is why my book has taken so long, is there is still, and I'm working on that, an element of fear of unleashing it into a scientific community where there are some theories and stuff in there that are just different than hard factual science, right? It's I know there's going to be pushback on some of them. And it's well, here we go, right? So that would be number one. And then the other part behind that is a language piece that I talk about. I'm kind of a language nerd at times. And it's the difference between want and commit. So if someone is saying there, I want to write a book, cool. Want is implying that it is somewhere else. It's somewhere out there. It's not within you. It's a wish. And it's okay, just change that. I commit to writing a book.
Big difference in language. Huge.
Total difference.
Yep.
Right.
And I saw that in you in terms of certain points within your evolution where you literally had to block off your phone. You had to schedule time out in your afternoons. You had to say no to a lot of things. Whereas at the start, you were maybe not doing that and therefore not getting far in the book writing process, period.
Yeah, 100%. And that's tangent on one of the biggest things I learned in writing this book is when I started it, I just taken on way too many things. Mm-hmm. And I've definitely in 2023 here, I'm much better at that, on focusing. And it's if I ever do write another book, a second book, I can tell you what will happen is it will occur at a time when I've pre-planned it. And it's let's go. This is the focus. and it will be a way quicker book production.
Yep. Excellent. Okay. A couple more here. Couple of fun ones, but the first is, what the heck is the teachability index? This was new to me. I was like, what is this? And why should we care? Like, what is this? This is going into that scientific, non-scientific. I'm like, is this real? What's Mike trying to sell me?
I like that you brought this up, and I'm going to blow apart your cadence on this podcast, because the teachability index, this is like a fascinating thing to me. So everyone knows that's followed our podcast. I have my Monday night mastermind. We actually switched to the afternoon, fun fact, because we were like, this is interfering with our family time. So it's like, put it in the afternoon. But anyway, we still meet weekly. And every quarter we will decide to deep dive something. And we deep dove a YouTube series called Your Wish is Your Command. And it's 13 or 14 or 15 videos. I don't know. They're each about an hour long. And for a whole quarter, we listened to those videos on repeat. That was our task. And then every week we would discuss those. And this is some of the most powerful like tactics for change. And I've consumed a ton of material. And it is, when you say that, it's like, this is one of those pieces where I could see the scientific community being like, but bear with me. So okay. I'm going to zoom out, and then we're going to zoom in on teachability index. Okay. There's basically 5 steps if you are considering, change in your life. So number 1, who do you listen to? This is really important in today's day and age with social media, because anyone can pretend to be anything, but it's like, who do you listen to? And they better have walked the final 30 feet in whatever they say they're doing, right? Yep. This is really important. Number 2, this is the teachability index. So I'm going to come back and we'll zoom in, but the teachability index is basically your willingness to learn and your willingness to accept change. So we're going to come back to that. Okay. Step 3, training balance scale. You have action and you have your thoughts, right? The biggest myth in the world, and you don't get me wrong, before I say this, you have to take action. That's like, I say that in the book a million times, but the biggest myth in the world is that those need to be balanced. Okay. And they don't, because your thoughts and your feelings dictate your actions. Step 4, 4 levels of learning, right? Unconscious incompetence, right? I don't know what I don't know.
Totally.
Next level, conscious incompetence. I know that I don't know, right? If we're looking at a veterinarian, that would be me as a horse lameness veterinarian. I know that I don't know, right? That's where I'm at on that. Conscious competence. Okay, I know that I know. And then the highest level, unconscious competence. That's where it just flows through you, right? So I think of like going to the horse example, that'd be like our buddy Ty. Totally. He would be unconscious competence. Like he's just basically one with the horse. He sees it. It's like he's talking to the horse. Done. Okay. And then step 5 is master the first 4 steps, master the basics. And so the reason I had to tell you this whole framework before we come back is because I feel like when people are looking to change, they think it has to be complicated, right? And that almost gives you an excuse not to change, because it's this really complicated thing. And it's like, wow, there's no way I could ever figure it out. But the trick is, it's just mastering the basics. Like just get back to the fundamentals. So the teachability index, your willingness to learn and your willingness to accept change. And the good news is everyone listening to this podcast has the ability to have a high teachability index because you've done it before. So when you think about going to veterinary school, what is your willingness to learn? Very high, right? You filled your schedule with lectures. You're surrounded by people that are consuming the same things. Your willingness to accept change, very high. You probably moved cities, right? You're living with a roommate you don't know. You made sacrifices to get there and to be there, right? And then the catch is we have a teachability index in all areas of our life, and it ebbs and flows. And what I found in my journey, in my careers, my teachability index started to fall off. Right? As I got on in my career, I started like, I was less curious. I was less willing to learn. I was less willing to accept change. Right? And within that willingness to learn, it's what are you willing to do and what are you willing to let go of? And I put an asterisk behind that. What are you willing to let go of? Because that is probably the piece that holds everyone up. Right? So I'm going to let you chime in here and see where you want to go, if you want to dig deeper on that or what you're thinking here.
So what I'm thinking is, and again, this is where I want people to read the book, because you have some follow-ups that they can take in terms of next steps. Where does somebody that wants to make a difference, but maybe doesn't know how to go about it, use the teachability index to their benefit?
Okay, great question. So if you remember, step 3 was the training balance scale. So you just asked me how. How is an action question?
Okay.
And that is the biggest myth that's out there, right? You do need to take action, but before, you have to go to the other side of the scale and get your thoughts figured out and your
whys.
Your whys.
Yep.
Right. So the first step is getting over there. And that's when we get into the identity piece, right? Getting aligned, like who you actually are. What do you really want? Not what someone else is telling you should want, right? So you have to get that sorted. But then beyond that, back to your question, how do you kind of increase that teachability index? Proximity is probably the best answer I can give, right? You have to raise your desire for that outcome. And typically as humans, how we raise that desire is we see it, right? When you see someone else, like when you were younger and you went and you mentored or you just followed a veterinarian at the local clinic and you saw it, you saw them do something amazing with an animal, your desire to do that went up. So then your teachability index goes up because you're willing to learn more, you're willing to accept more change. So proximity would be my answer.
Great answer. Okay, I'll leave it at that because I want the rest of it to be in the book for people to read as it comes out. Mike, how are people going to get a hold of this? What are they going to do? What do they do?
Well, this episode, we're launching this as like launch day episode. So if you are hearing this book is now officially live. It'll be on every major book platform. So, Amazon and all the big ones. You can come over to, our websites, theveterinaryproject.com, order links in there. I do also have a bit of a bundle put together for this pre-launch period. I'll probably run it for about a week after launch here. I've included some of the tools that I developed and used. I have like a daily intention checklist. I have a workbook. I never did send you the workbook yet. And I went like deep on the workbook. I looked at it the other day. It's like 85 or 80 some pages. And every chapter has exercises and questions and that you can do along with it. Because honestly, my evolution was I used to read a lot of books, but then you don't take any action on the book. And it's like, well, that doesn't do any good, right? So what I really want, obviously I want people to read the book, but I want them to grab a few big things that really hit them and put them in action. So that's why I created the workbook. And then I'm a big fan of goal setting. So I will be doing a goal setting workshop later in 2023 for anyone that purchases the book. So head over Veterinary Project or Amazon, any major retailer will have it.
When you say any major retailer, what do you mean by that?
Online, like the Barnes and Noble, funny story. My mom texted me the other day and she's like, will your book be in Costco? And I was like, here's a mindset moment. Cause I start laughing and I was like, no, like it won't be in Costco. But then I started thinking like, why would I even say that? Like maybe, but like,
so if I go to Indigo one day, I'm going to see this possibly in there.
I have no control over that from what I've heard. Like those retailers decide what they put on their shelves. So it would really have to blow up before, Indigo decides, hey, this is worth putting on our shelves. I would love that. Like
that would be cool.
I think it could maybe someday, but for now, while you're listening to this, Amazon, go to Amazon online.
Thanks. That's good. Because I'm sure there was a few people asking the same question as me. All right, Mike, we got to get going here. Lastly, congratulations, buddy. I know this has been a big project for you. I look forward to seeing what the next one looks like. I want a copy of that workbook. Don't know if I'm going to do it or not. I did read the book, which is pretty awesome. Kudos to you. I'm going to get a number of copies, going to share them at the universities, which I do speaking at, and look forward to walking through the journey of reviews as they start coming through with you, bud. So happy to be on the journey. Congratulations. For everybody, go jump onto the Veterinary Project podcast website. And Mike, what is the link for it if they want more?
Veterinaryproject.com. And then we have a book page on there.
There we go. Last word, as always, what is the message that you would like to leave for the veterinary community?
I knew this one was coming. So I am not going to say the same as what I end the book with. Yep. But I do have one. I'm going to pull a quote from a different part of the book. And Bronnie Ware was a palliative nurse in Australia, and she authored a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And in that, she found that the number one regret of the dying is, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And so my final word and the entire intention of writing this book is that I hope that everyone that reads that book, I hope that everyone that follows our podcast never knows that regret.
Thank you for listening to the Veterinary Project Podcast. As a recap on behalf of our hosts, the Veterinary Project Podcast will be releasing new episodes weekly, so be sure to tune in as we bring you more conversations aimed at helping you enjoy a life well lived. If you enjoyed what you heard on the show and you want to stay in the know, please like, love, and or subscribe to the podcast on the listening platform of your choosing, as we're available on all the usual suspects. If you know of others that may benefit from these conversations, we'd love it if you please share the show with them, as this will help us grow our community to reach more and more veterinary professionals. Speaking of which, if you are a veterinary professional and would like to get connected with more like-minded individuals who are joining us on this journey, please send an email to the veterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll invite you to be a part of our private Facebook group. General feedback, requests for information, or perhaps requests to be a guest on the show can also be sent to the Veterinary Project Podcast @gmail.com. Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light, thank you for listening to the show, and we'll catch you again next week for another episode of the Veterinary Project Podcast. Bye for now.